Good afternoon, conference. Welcome to our final session. We've got a lot to look forward to this afternoon. Obviously, the most important part of the afternoon is coming up, the raffle. So, with no further ado, I'm delighted to draw the raffle. We have 3 fantastic prizes to win. So, third prize of £1,000 goes to went right down to the bottom of that there to Mr. Edward Cairns of Motherwell. Congratulations. And the second prize of £2,000 goes to James McCubbin of Dumfries. Congratulations, James. And the top prize is a car, a 5-door Peugeot 208. So, first prize goes to Patricia Simpson of Falkirk. Congratulations. So, well done to all of the raffle winners this afternoon. So, moving on with our agenda, delegates, we have some topical and emergency resolutions which we will hope to hear just before 3 p.m. So I'll give you the text of these resolutions now. The first topical resolution, which we heard yesterday, is the Kashmir emergency. And the text of this resolution is: Conference believes that free and fair elections, free from military and state interference, should be available to all who live in a democracy. However, Conference notes with concern the decision by the Indian government to unilaterally abolish Kashmir's semi-autonomous status and place it under direct military control. Conference stands in solidarity with the citizens of Kashmir who have been placed in a communication blockade and are under curfew, now in its 3rd month, and notes with concern that many of their elected representatives and political leaders are currently in detention. Conference calls on the international community to condemn the treatment of citizens living in Kashmir, notes that the people of Kashmir have the right to self-determine their future as outlined in UN Security Council resolutions, and encourages all to find a peaceful and diplomatic route to restore human and democratic rights to Kashmir. Thank you, delegates. The second topical resolution is entitled Scotland's Place in Europe. And this resolution reads: Conference recalls that Scotland voted overwhelmingly across every counting area to remain within the European Union. Conference also unequivocally supports the peace process in Northern Ireland, which is underpinned and predicated upon all parts of the island of Ireland being in the EU, Single Market and Customs Union, and is deeply concerned the UK government's most recent Brexit proposals fail to properly respect the Good Friday Agreement. Conference reiterates that it is the sovereign right of the people of Scotland to choose our future, and endorses the policy of the Scottish Government that if Scotland is removed from the European Union against our democratic will, then the Scottish Government will take all steps necessary to organise a referendum on independence and commence preparations with the EU for pre-accession and accession talks as an applicant state. Thank you, Conference. Moving on to our agenda for this afternoon. The first resolution we have is resolution number 22, legal costs for residency orders. This resolution will be proposed by Jackie Harris and seconded by Councillor Julie Deckbarn. And Jackie is a first-time speaker. Welcome, Jackie.
Good afternoon, Conference. This resolution was put forward to East Kilbride branch by my friend Jackie MacDonald, who is herself a kinship carer. Jackie also works as a team leader, social worker, and has seen the consequences to children when carers do not have a residency order in place. Jackie is unable to be at conference today because it falls in the October week and her grandchild is on school holiday and she has caring duties. A kinship carer is a member of a child's family or a friend who looks after the child full-time in place of their biological parent. Relatives such as grandparents, older siblings, aunts and uncles, or any family may apply for kinship carers as a result of parental issues, which may be around substance abuse, poor mental health, neglect, or abuse. They step in to avoid the child being placed in foster care. However, parental rights remain with the parents, and many, due to their own personal circumstances, are unable to accept why their child cannot reside with them, and will challenge the system, often to the detriment of that child. As a result, many children are placed under compulsory supervision orders via the Children's Hearing System under the Children Hearing Scotland Act 2011 in order to secure their placement. This means that the child is subject to regular reviews and is legally required to attend hearings. If it has been assessed by social workers that a child cannot return to the care of their parents, the kinship carers are encouraged to apply for a residency order, which will transfer many parental rights towards them. This requires an application at court and retention of a lawyer. Many local authorities will provide a payment towards the legal fees. However, it does not cover the complete cost. If a parent opposes the residency order application, it can turn into thousands of pounds. In the case that a kinship carer is in employment or has savings, they will not be granted legal aid. Whereas many parents who oppose the application do qualify and are in a position to sustain a lengthy court case that the kinship carer cannot afford. As a result, many children remain subject to compulsory measures of care and remain under the care of social services. The cared for child must attend regular children's panels, and parents can repeatedly request early reviews, causing a children's hearing, which the child must attend. Imagine this scenario. You are a grandparent. You have raised your own family. You're working full-time and saving for your pension. Through no fault of your own or of the child's, you find yourself in a position whereby you either take on the full care of your grandchild or see them go into foster care. Would you be in a position financially to give up your employment or reduce your hours? In addition, the children involved in these situations may have already had a difficult home life. They have been bereft of their natural parents and may have been moved due to traumatic circumstances, maybe even the death of a parent. For these children, the trauma of facing children's panels on a regular basis is unacceptable. To meet with a group of adults who can decide whether you will be taken from a stable home and return to the confusion of your previous life repeatedly is a torment for young people. We know that adverse childhood experiences, otherwise known as ACEs, have physiological and psychological consequences for people throughout their lives. To be able to form a trusting relationship with even one adult can ensure that children avoid these lifelong health burdens. So kinship caring provides children with a loving environment and can also save our country millions of pounds in fostering and adoption costs. For local authorities, the cost of securing a child on compulsory supervision order runs into thousands of pounds a year. I propose that kinship carers who do not qualify for legal aid to pursue a residency order are supported to fund the full legal cost of the application. Can we support these vulnerable children? I think we should. I urge you to support the resolution. Thank you, Conference.
Thank you, Jackie. This resolution will be seconded by Councillor Julie Detbarn, who is also a first-time speaker, followed by Sarah Quinn in favour of the resolution. Welcome, Julie.
These are our bairns, introduced in 2008 by Children's Minister Adam Ingram, gave Scotland groundbreaking, world-leading legislation for our looked after and care experienced children and young people. It introduced us, for the first time in Scotland, to the concept and value of kinship care. Today, when so many kinship carers now find themselves having to go to court months or years after the fact to gain hugely costly residence orders, it seems to suggest to me that perhaps there is something in the base legislation that now, with the wisdom of hindsight and experience, requires to be looked at again. I know a particular kinship family very well. I remember the trauma when the children were first placed in Gran's care, the children's distress at repeated children's hearings under compulsory supervision, their fear that their school pals would find out where they were going, and having to relive and be re-traumatised by the sad part of their story over and over again. As you heard from Jackie, unless there's a residence order in place, kinship carers have absolutely no parental rights, in spite of tons of love, shed loads of commitment, and all of the responsibilities for raising the children in their care. Imagine the nightmare every time a form needs signing: passports, holidays, school trips, a wee savings account at the bank, consent forms for anything from scout camp to medical treatment. Every single time requires an official intervention, which serves only to remind the child over and over again that their life is quite different from others. I also remember the week before last Christmas when the bombshell arrived, the solicitor's appointment on Christmas Eve, where Gran was informed that she couldn't contest the case being raised as she had no parental rights and that she urgently needed a residence order, only to be informed that a contested residence order could cost in the region of £10,000. By the time she'd walked back to her car, she'd already thought about selling the family caravan and how best to raise what else might be needed. For the next 7 months, the children were dragged through meetings to compile reports, every part of their lives under scrutiny, court hearings, and all that this process entails. The trauma of those 7 months to the young people involved was considerable, and we can never take any of that back. Gran now has a residence order and the shared parental rights which that order confers, and life has been transformed. The girls finally have the normal life with Gran and Papa that they have always needed, 7 years after the nick of time. I'm asking that the research requested by this resolution considers a progressive change in law and kinship to enable residency requirements to be built in where needed at the start of formal kinship arrangements, to secure the safety of children at risk and prevent them enduring stressful repeated children's hearings. As a bonus, this would also alleviate pressure on the hearing system, remove the burden on social workers to produce supporting documents every time a signature is needed, and completely remove the burden of costly additional court orders on either the individual or the local authority, providing kinship carers with what they need to fully enable them to provide a safe, settled, happy and carefree life to the child or children and young people that the child or children and young people in their care so entirely deserve. I've spoken to you today as a councillor and a fiercely committed corporate parent. I've sought to use my position locally to break down stigma associated with care experience and mental illness, which is so often the cause of children becoming looked after, and I am well pleased to do so. The kinship grandma I spoke about is me. The kinship family I spoke about is my family. confidence we can and we must do better. Please support this important resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Conference, we now hear from Sarah Quinn to speak in favour of the resolution, followed by Jack Bogue to speak in favour of the resolution.
Thank you. Conference, all day today we have taken pride in these three values: fairness, dignity and respect. I'm beyond grateful in the fact that our SNP Scottish Government is taking steps to ensure that these values are enshrined in their every move. As we move forward with reform and review for our care system, we must ensure that standardisation and support for residency order is one of these steps. As someone whose life is still largely impacted by experience of the care system, I am more than certain that current practice for kinship care is far from adequate. Difficulty in attaining residency orders can create severe stress and uncertainty in the homes of those in kinship care. It means that those valuable carers who step up to the mark to support children and young people are not able to fully focus on creating the loving, happy home that kids in care both need and deserve. Visits to social work, courts and children's panels become as regular as their weekly shop, and it's easy to say that the legal processes surrounding care, while incredibly important, create unpredictable, uncertain and unhappy environments for those at the heart of it. In my own experience, I found children's panels to be intimidating and often felt talked down to when asked about difficult and traumatic life experiences. Despite being the confident, outspoken young person that I am today, during my experience of care, I felt voiceless. Conference, how can we justify sending young people to children's panels after children's panels while still expecting them to maintain good grades, an active social life, and positive mental well-being? If residency orders were made easier to attain, our young people and children wouldn't have to face this high level of disruption to their everyday lives. Instead, they'd be faced with our three core values: fairness, dignity, and respect. Conference, while systems are developing to make sure that our care system can be one of the best in the world, it's essential that we do what we can right now to minimise disruption and poor mental well-being for care-experienced young people and their kinship carers. Standardisation of residency order costs, better support and access and legal support, and consistency of practice across Scotland would make sure that kinship carers and the ways they support can know what they have to expect when they begin their journey and continue their journey with the care system. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Our final speaker on this resolution is Jack Bogue. Welcome, Jack.
Conference. In 2003, when I was, well, 3, because I was born in 2000, my parents separated. Neither of them felt that they were particularly able to care for me. My mum didn't really feel that her situation would result in a particularly conducive environment to bring up a child. My dad was about to go back into higher education in order to completely retrain into a different profession. So what happened to me? My dad's older sister and my grandparents applied for a residency order, and I ended up in kinship care. A lot of things happened, but on and off, I ended up spending 15 years in kinship care. And the thing is, my grandparents were in a position of privilege where they were able to apply for a residency order, although at the time, I didn't really know about that. Now, picture 2016. It's an RBS branch somewhere in the centre of Dundee. I'm applying for a bank account, and I need to have a sign-off paper from my legal guardian. With me is my grandfather. And the bank man tells me that I need to find some form of proof that my grandfather is actually my legal guardian and he actually has parental rights. So that was when I found out properly what residency orders were and what they did and how a residency order affected me. And as I said again, I come from a position of privilege where my experience in kinship care was overwhelmingly positive, no need to attend children's panels, all because at that point a residency order was possible. So from there, that's what this resolution is about. It's making sure that every single person who has to end up in kinship care has a positive story in the initial stages, like mine. I want everyone who has in kinship care to have the overwhelmingly positive experience that I had. And at the moment, it is frankly not possible due to legal fees. That's just the kind of nature of that. And this resolution will make children's lives, it will make parents' lives, it will make kinship carers' lives so much better because it will standardise everything. It will make sure that more people can have fulfilling, positive, happy, loving lives. That, in my opinion, is a fundamental good that this party should support. And as a result, I beg you from the bottom of my heart to support this resolution.
Thank you very much, Jack. Conference, there are no cards in against this resolution. So can I ask delegates, is this resolution passed by acclaim? Thank you, delegates. We now move on to resolution number 23, Women in Agriculture, to be proposed by Maureen Watt, MSP, and seconded by Councillor Kirstine Curry. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you, Conference, and good afternoon. Conference, the status quo in agriculture is not an option. Brexit, deal or no deal, will have a devastating impact on our agriculture sector. And make no mistake, the UK government is prepared to sacrifice agriculture, especially the sheep sector, on the altar of Brexit. Questioned on this by the Rural Economy and Connectivity Committee, former Agriculture Secretary Michael Gove said he was prepared to work with the Scottish Government on temporary support measures to mitigate the worst effects of Brexit, not support the industry. So in order to preserve our rural landscape, it is vital that we protect our upland farmers, who make up the majority of farmers in Scotland. Yet we see the NFUS fighting to get the bulk of the 160 million convergence money, when we get it, for the already wealthy boys. And delegates, boys it is. The cultural practice of passing on farms intact to the elder son, or certainly a son, means land transfer is culturally institutionalised, even although there's no legal restriction against inheritance or bequeaths to daughters. But yet, women in family businesses outside of agriculture face far fewer barriers to business involvement and leadership. Yet, with the necessary diversification activities required in most agricultural businesses today, it is the women who are most open to exploring new avenues of generating income. The agricultural census shows that 43% of all working occupiers and spouses in farms are female, but only 7% are the principal farmer. A report by Professor Sarah Carter indicates that if a women's participation rates matched men's, it could boost the economy by as much as 5% of GDP, a positive difference of 7.6 billion, and many more direct jobs vital to supporting and sustaining our rural communities in Scotland. I will leave others to talk about the Women in Agriculture Task Force and the work it has been doing over the past 2 years to examine the diverse range of issues facing women within our rural industries. There is very much talent among women in rural Scotland, but there are undoubtedly barriers. Women are grossly underrepresented among the elected leadership of national-level farming organisations. So while over a third of farm operators are women, NFUS has no women among its national office holders, but also neither on the regional board or committee chairs. Yet Scottish young farmers provide leadership experience to young women, and there are women in leadership roles in the crofting sector. So the talent is there. Shame on you, NFUS, you can do better. Conference today, by good timing, is also International Day of Rural Women. And it was my pleasure this morning to welcome to the Fringe meeting members of the Parliament of Malawi who are here to observe our conference. The crucial role women and girls play in ensuring the sustainability of rural households and communities and improving rural households' livelihoods and overall well-being across the world has been increasingly recognised. So we in Scotland need to harness the talents of our women in rural Scotland too. Please support the motion.
Thank you, Maureen. This resolution will be seconded by Councillor Kirstine Curry, followed by Fergus Ewing, MSP, speaking in favour. Welcome, Kirstine.
Friends, I stand before you today with a grand proclamation. Superheroes exist, and some of them are in a task force. I'd like to thank our Scottish Government, in particular, the work that our Cabinet Secretary, Fergus Ewing, has done on this issue, because now we have women at the top of their game being represented. These superheroes don't wear capes, they wear wellies. They're not fighting crime. They're accountants, they're experts in animal husbandry, they're feeding wains, they're parents and they're stalwarts of their communities, they're women in agriculture. This morning I spoke to a very dear friend of mine who's a fierce woman in agriculture, and let's hear what she had to say when I said to her we were going to be doing this today. She said, "We've got a massive, somewhat untapped resource in certain areas with women involved in our agriculture industry. Cultural change is slow, and although we've often given lip service, we're still waiting to see the change in some of our leading agricultural organisations. It feels at times that there's a strong resentment to change of behaviour and practices. This is not good enough. The OECD, the IMF, their research confirms that equality and cohesion are good for the economy as well as good for individuals. Not only do we want to expand and grow our rural economy, we want to show support and solidarity with women who have put in the graft year after year. They've learned their craft, they know their trade, and they are still not represented. They're undervalued. Friends, we've heard on this stage many times in the last few days, if you can't see it, you can't be it. It's the same in the NFUS, and I'd like to echo Maureen's calls to them. You need women in your organisation, and you need them in leadership roles. Friends, our agriculture industry is facing enormous challenges, be that deal or no, in the next few weeks and months. And we need them. They feed us and provide us with all manner of products and resources. So let's show our support. Let's show our support and unity for our women in agriculture. Let's show our support for real superheroes. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Kirstine. Our final speaker on this resolution, Fergus Ewing, MSP.
Friends, my mother Winnie can't be here. She is with you in spirit and sends her love to you all. I did see her recently and asked her I asked Winnie what she thought about our Prime Minister, and she said, "He's just a buffoon." but a dangerous one. So that says it all, really. Ladies and gentlemen, crofters and farmers are at the very heart of rural Scotland, and I'm delighted to support the great work they do for our country. They produce high-quality food, better than anywhere else in the world. They look after the countryside for what it is, and they are at the heart of the communities in which they live. And I'm delighted that former difficulties about ensuring that the support payments they receive have been fixed. And indeed, I can tell you that this year, on the 1st of October, the very first available date, they received, most of them, 95% of their money, 327 million to 13,470 people, 2 months ahead of their counterparts in England. And I'm delighted that after 6 years of campaigning for money that was intended for Scotland's hill farmers and others, the convergence money that frankly was misappropriated by successive UK governments, they were finally shamed into having to give it back. Shamed. And that money will be returned to those for whom it was intended. I've been delighted to co-chair the Women in Agricultural Task Force with Joyce Campbell, a formidable lady who, with her husband, farms in Armadale, Caithness, who were Sheep Farmer of the Year in 2015, a lady of many talents. And over the past 2 years, as Maureen has said, the task force has had to do a job which, arguably, in the 21st century, we shouldn't have to do, to seek equality of representation, opportunity, leadership, and opportunities that men have taken for granted. Women shouldn't have themselves to fix this problem, but I guess they had to wait too long for men not to do so, and therefore the task force is close to completing its report. The recommendations will be wide-ranging. Some solutions will seem obvious and others less so, but the report will, I believe, mark the end of the beginning. And I think it's vital that everyone with an interest in agriculture commits to act on these recommendations. I want to ensure, and they will ensure with the recommendations when they're implemented, that women from rural communities are supported to have confidence in their own undoubted abilities. And I'm pleased to announce today that applications to take part in the first of 3 pilot leadership and training programs is now open. But as Kirsten and Maureen have said, there are too many institutions, organizations, agencies involved in agriculture that frankly are men-only bodies. That is wrong, and it has to change, as has been said, and it will change. I'm delighted that Kate Howell was appointed by me to chair Quality Meat Scotland, and she's doing an excellent job, as I saw when I attended Anuga, the world's largest food trade conference in Cologne last week, attended by 160,000 people, all looking at purchasing Scotch beef, Scotch lamb, and our other high-quality food and drink products. So what we shall do to ensure that more females are present on the leadership of bodies in agriculture in Scotland is that we have today appointed a charity, Changing the Chemistry, to provide training to alter the perspective of these organizations, which have resulted in them continuing to be men-only zones. So in conclusion, delegates, until we have women properly and appropriately represented in leadership positions, and also until women feel supported to play whatever role they want to in this key industry for the rural economy, our work is not yet done. But I'm confident that it will be, and I will work to ensure that that is indeed what happens, and women in Scotland in agriculture achieve their enormous potential. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Fergus. Delegates, that is the conclusion of the speeches on that resolution. There are no cards in against the resolution. So can I ask conference, is this passed by acclaim? Thank you. We move on now to Resolution 24, Scottish Child Payment. This resolution will be proposed by Shona Robeson, MSP, and seconded by Bob Doris, MSP. Welcome, Shona.
Conference, the Scottish Child Payment is a bold initiative, and I think one of the most progressive policy decisions since devolution. I think will contribute to helping make Scotland the best place in the world to grow up. And it has been described by anti-poverty campaigners as a game changer, and it is a game changer. The £10 a week payment to eligible families will be delivered early to eligible children under 6 from 2021, with around 410,000 children potentially benefiting by the end of 2022. It's expected that the Scottish Child Payment will lift 30,000 children out of relative poverty and reduce relative poverty by 3%. So it is indeed a game changer. Now, the Scottish Government has introduced many measures over the years to help mitigate against the welfare cuts imposed by the UK Government. Indeed, these mitigation measures are now costing the Scottish Government around £125 million a year to tackle UK austerity imposed on our country. Despite this, Scotland is facing a spike in child poverty as a result of welfare cuts imposed by the UK Government. Without these cuts, Conference, think how much more the Scottish Child Payment could achieve, how much an even bigger impact it could have on child poverty. And that's why, Conference, we need the Scottish Government to have full control over all welfare powers so that we can reject the austerity agenda for our people. With full control over welfare powers, we can have a system that treats people with the dignity that they deserve. We'll end the idea of the deserving and the undeserving poor and have a system that we collectively all contribute to, because we will all use that system at some point in our lives. And that's what makes us a nation that thinks about ourselves as a society that wants to help and work with one another. And that's why the work of the Social Justice and Fairness Commission that I've been given the honour to chair is so important, so that we can set out how we'll use the powers of independence to tackle poverty and create a more socially just Scotland, so that we can have that system that people are treated with dignity, that they will be able to be supported when they need to be supported, and that they will have that support as a right, and we will get away from the system that makes people feel that they are undeserving. And we know from the impact of our mailbags and the work that we do in our constituencies of the devastating impact of universal credit, welfare cuts, and making people feel that they are undeserving. We want to end that, Conference, and this Scottish Child Payment is a great initiative, a great start, but we also need control over all welfare powers. Thank you.
Thank you, Shona. To second this resolution, we have Bob Doris, MSP, to be followed by Sergei Druhaku to move the remit back. Welcome, Bob.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon. Conference. Last week, I attended a number of events as part of Challenge Poverty Week. And on the Monday, I attended an event sponsored by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation and IPPR, and they were looking specifically at the Scottish Child Payment. And we've heard talk, as Shona mentioned there, that this is a game changer, but I looked at the whites of people's eyes in that room who were stakeholders in the anti-poverty sector and those with lived experience of poverty, and it absolutely will be a game changer. That's not just a soundbite, that will be a reality on the ground when we deliver this policy. And on the Friday, I participated in a Poverty Alliance political panel question and answer session, again as part of Challenge Poverty Week. And all the panellists were asked, well, what's your offer in 2021 in tackling poverty in Scotland. But what I actually did was I highlighted the Scottish Child Payment as an example of why we can have absolute confidence, and I do mean absolute confidence, in the SNP's approach to tackling poverty. And let me tell you why. Scotland's anti-poverty groups had run a campaign for an extra £5 top-up of child benefit. It was called the Gimme 5 campaign. It was a great campaign, really, really powerful campaign, the length and breadth of Scotland. The Scottish Government listened, they engaged, and they responded. They didn't respond with £5 a week, they responded with £10 a week for young people in the lowest income households. That's real listening and delivery in government, and we should be very proud of that. Now, you, Shona, would mention the numbers around the Scottish child payment, but I'm absolutely deliberately going to repeat them because every activist and every member should remember these numbers and take them to every doorstep in the country. Quite frankly, this will benefit 250,000 households. It will benefit up to 410,000 young children being blighted by poverty. It's a £180 million investment each and every year in those low-income households. It will lift 30,000 young people out of poverty and help far more than that to improve their quality of life as well. And as Shona said, it will predicted to reduce relative poverty by 3%. Please remember those numbers and take them to every doorstep in the country when they say, what has the SNP ever done for you? Because there are the answers. But there's no complacency, because the numbers that really matter is that in the UK, child poverty is sitting at 30%, and it has increased in Scotland, it's sitting at 24%. It's absolutely no satisfaction that the Scottish number is lower than the UK number, not at all. It's still far too high, but it does provide a context, as does the rest of the policy platform of the SNP and of the Scottish Government. So whether it's doubling childcare in Scotland for 3- and 4-year-olds, or whether it's the Best Start grant, focused payments for young children, for mums and families to support young children in the earliest years. For a family with 2 children, that will be £1,800 targeted when they're born, targeted at nursery school, and targeted when they start primary school. That will make a real difference. And what will make a real difference as well, there will be no 2-child cap, and there will be no rape clause on Scottish Government benefits. So, in closing, the people of Scotland can have every confidence in our SNP government because we've demonstrated that already by drawing on the lived experience of those living in poverty, by drawing on the wealth of knowledge and expertise with anti-poverty groups, and we did that by delivering the Scottish Child Payment. It is a game changer, but as Shona has said already, the real game changer in tackling poverty is the powers of an independent nation. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Bob. Delegates, I have no formal seconder for the remit back. To take the remit back, I would need a seconder from the floor. Does anyone wish to second from the floor? Thank you, I see someone there. So to move the remit back then, Sergei Druhaku, followed by Councillor Lynn Short to speak for the resolution. Welcome, Sergei.
Good afternoon, conference. Yes, I agree that it's just a start to tackle poverty in Scotland, but we need to look at different options with child benefits. As I know, it's easy to abuse the good course. I have received child benefits myself, and I have to say it's very easy to abuse it. If once, once parents get the money from a benefit system, it's at their own disposal, not at the disposal of the child. So we need to look at the other options and other ideas to make sure that we've got this money right to the child, not to the parents. Thank you. Even if my main concern is my main worry for other kids with parents that got drug misuse and some other kind of, they use those benefits for whatever they want, like cigarettes or whatever they fancy, right? And that's why I want to ask a conference today to try to send this resolution to do some more work and to amend this resolution. Sorry. I want to add something else, that benefit system is not broken. It's not sustainably developed. Boris Johnson recently announced big money to give to NHS, to police, to farmers, whatever it is. But we all know perfectly well that however money you spend on something, you always need more and more money. So that's why we need to develop benefit system based on sustainability, that money will not be used to patch holes and used appropriately. I'm open to discuss with any parties about other solutions. But for now, I would like you to remit back this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergey. Our final speaker, speaking for the resolution, is Councillor Lynn Short, and Lynn is a first-time speaker. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you, you beautiful, amazing people. I couldn't do friends, I don't know y'all yet. I am a first-time speaker on this stage, but I have with me 3 generations. My parents are here and my son is here. So it's time. Once in a generation, so we've got 3 here, so let's get that vote again. I am here today with one of my hats on. I'm a councillor in Dundee, and I am the spokesperson for equalities, also older people, and fairness. And this is what this is about. It's about that fairness agenda. And I'm delighted that we've had 2 people up here from Dundee, because we're She-Town, and it's really, really important that we have the ability to look after our bairns. And for this to happen, it is game-changing. I am a parent. I'm a single parent and always have been. And in 2010, I got £82.80 every 13 payments over the year. This year, I still get exactly the same, because in 2010, the Tories and their Lib Dem pals decided that they were going to freeze it. Now, if anybody has ever bought anything for a child, they will know that the money in 2010 doesn't go the same way in 2019. They froze it and they've not put it up. That's ridiculous. These children grow. Trying to put shoes on bairns, and you've got £82.10. So what's happening in Scotland is really important. I'm a great believer in dress for the job that you want. And really, what we're doing now in Scotland is we're dressing for the country that we want to be. And we're showing that fairness, respect, and looking after people are the byword of the country that we are. And I'm sitting looking over here, and my mum and dad don't have their phone out. So if somebody can take a picture of me up here, I would very much appreciate it. And first-time speaker, it's probably first and last, so I might as well enjoy it. So finally, 3 generations here. I don't want to be here with 4 generations still looking to be that independent nation. We've got the skills, we've got the innovation. Let's get out there and convince everybody that we need to be an independent Scotland to be the country that we want to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Delegates, we are moving against the clock a little bit, so I wonder if Sergey and Shona would be willing to waive their rights to sum up on this occasion. I think they would. Thank you very much, both. So we will vote firstly, delegates, on the remit back and then on the resolution if appropriate. So firstly, in terms of the remit back, can I ask all those in favour of the remit back to please raise your cards? Thank you. Cards down. All those against the remit back, please raise your cards. Thank you. Cards down. The remit back falls overwhelmingly. And looking at the resolution then, delegates, can I ask all those in favour of the resolution to please raise your cards? Thank you. Cards down. All those against the resolution to please raise your cards. Thank you. The resolution passes unanimously. So, delegates, before we move on to our topical resolutions, I have with me the results of our National Office Bearer elections. So I will read through these post by post and let you know the outcomes. Can I firstly thank all of those who have put themselves forward as nominees for these elections. They all deserve to be congratulated. So firstly, the post of National Secretary. This post was elected at stage 1. The numbers for each candidate were Morgan Davies, 156, Angus MacLeod, 776, Christopher McElhenney, 199. And Angus MacLeod is elected. For the post of Women's Convener, this post was elected at stage 5. The final 2 nominees were Rhiannon Spear with 412 and Colette Walker with 380. And Rhiannon Spear is therefore elected. For the post of Equalities Convener, this was elected at stage 2. And the 2 candidates remaining at that stage were Mercy Kamanja with 431 votes and Fiona Robertson with 498. And Fiona Robertson is duly elected. The post of BAME convener was elected at stage 3. The 2 candidates remaining at that stage were Graham Campbell with 501 votes and Michelle Campbell with 400 votes. And Graham Campbell is elected. For NEC parliamentarians, the 2 elected members are Tommy Shepherd and Alison Thulis. For NEC reps for Central Region, the female representative elected is Lynn Anderson, and the open list representative is Cameron McManus. For Glasgow Region NEC representatives, the female list representative is Christina Cannon, and the open list representative is Alec Kerr. For Lothian Region, the open list representative is Andy Diak. For Mid-Scotland and Fife, the female representative is Mireille Pouget, and the open list representative is Rory Fleming. For South Scotland, the female representative is Heather Anderson, and the open list representative is Rob Davidson. And the final position for West of Scotland NEC representatives, the female list representative is Amy Callaghan, and the open list representative is Robert Innes. So congratulations to them all. So, thank you very much, Conference. We now move on to topical resolutions, the first of which is on the topic of Kashmir. This topical resolution will be proposed by Councillor Junaid Ashraf, who is a first-time speaker at conference, and seconded by Samiha Rehman. Junaid, welcome. And delegates, if I could make a plea for anybody who might speak to be ready at the stage, because the clock is against us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, conference. It saddens me that it is on this subject that I am a first-time speaker, but the situation is dire. Today's emergency motion calls for conference to stand in solidarity with the citizens of Kashmir, who have been placed in a communications blockade and are under curfew. Now in its third month, the situation is becoming rapidly more concerning. A similar motion was passed recently at the Labour Party conference, and I'd like to echo the words of Naz Shah MP for Bradford West. Over 70 years have passed, UN resolutions denied, self-determination sidelined, tens of thousands murdered, political activists tortured, and now the Indian government has revoked Article 370 and placed a siege on the people of Kashmir. 3 months have passed on a complete lockdown on the region. There is no communication with the outside world. And 700,000, I repeat, 700,000 military personnel have been placed on guard in the most militarized region in the world. This is a region, to put it into context, of about 9 to 12 million people. Barbed wires are covering the cities. Political leaders are under house arrest, and there are reports of the most horrific human rights abuses with midnight raids, torture, rape, and murder. The path to genocide in Kashmir is opening up, and the world remains silent. Conference, the Kashmiri people have a right to live in peace, as all humankind should. An important factor of this is the ability for the Kashmiri people to self-determine. As many of you may know, many of the diaspora from Kashmir neither refer to them as Scottish Pakistani nor Scottish Indian, but wholly Scottish Kashmiri living within this great nation. And it is for them primarily that I stand here to say that we must use the rights and privileges that we are afforded in this nation as citizens to stand in solidarity with the people of Kashmir. A free and fair referendum should be carried out for the people of Kashmir to decide their future. Democracy must be upheld, conference. For if democracy is not universal and nations of people are left to be oppressed, whilst we stay silent on the sidelines, we are all at fault. Today's emergency motion calls for conference to stand in solidarity with the citizens of Kashmir and calls on the international community to condemn the treatment of citizens living in Kashmir. I hope today you will choose to stand in solidarity with the people of Kashmir and support this emergency motion. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Junaid. To second the motion, we have another first-time speaker, Samiha Rehman, to be followed by Morgan Davies to speak against the motion. Welcome, Samiha.
Good afternoon, conference. Like Junaid, I didn't want the first time I was standing on the stage to be with such an oppressing subject, but I am grateful that I have the opportunity today to highlight to you the pressing matter for the people of Kashmir. Conference, we in Scotland are lucky to live in a democratic society with free and fair elections and referendums, opportunities to express our opinions, chances to make our voices heard. We can freely go to a polling station and place our votes without fear of negative backlash. We can post a tweet without fear that we will be persecuted for the views that we share. We can go to the streets of our great cities and march for what we believe in without fear of being silenced. Friends, we don't realise just how lucky we are to have these freedoms that, yes, we take for granted all the time, but nonetheless freedoms that the people of Kashmir can only dream of having. We are no longer living in a colonial world with power-hungry nations wielding ungiven authority as masters over those they consider beneath them, and yet this happens all the time. We live in the 21st century, and there is no good reason, scrap that, there is no reason at all why any country should have the sheer audacity to restrict the freedoms of another. Conference, bloodshed is not and should never be the mechanism for highlighting calls for change, but the people of Kashmir have suffered and they will continue to suffer for their basic right to choose their own destiny. Scotland and Kashmir, they share a history of suppression. The difference being, Conference, we have a path on which we can have a referendum on independence, and that referendum is coming. Kashmir simply don't have the mechanism to be able to question theirs. The UN Charter rightly declares that every single state has the right to self-determination. Let us join the international community in condemning the brutality of the situation for all citizens of Kashmir. Friends, and I'll end on this point, as I know time is going, if the world is committed to democracy, if the world is committed to freedom of speech and expression, then the world should be committed to supporting the Kashmiri people's right to choose. Conference, in the name of the democracy that I for one love, and I know all of you do as well, please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. Conference, our final speaker on this resolution, as we are tight for time, is Morgan Davies to speak against the motion. Welcome, Morgan.
I'm very aware that it might be unpopular to talk against this resolution, but I'm slightly confused because I heard people talking about self-determination for Kashmir. The resolution starts off by condemning India's action, and Kashmir is split between three countries. A very small part of it is administered by China, and then the rest is split between Pakistan and India. So we started off talking about India-controlled Kashmir, and then we talked about the whole of Kashmir. I suppose my concern comes from what the last speaker said, that we are not living in a colonial age. The problem of Kashmir dates back to partition, which was carried out very hastily and very badly by the British. And it is a legacy of the British Empire. And yet we are here attempting to continue to say that we should have a say on what happens in the Indian subcontinent. India is the largest democracy in the world. The actions it has taken have been taken under its constitution, and I believe it has a written constitution, which is more than the UK has. It has removed some of the special privileges that it gave to India-administered Kashmir in the past. Now that surely is a matter for the Indian government, which is elected by the largest democratic mass of people in the world. And I'm a bit concerned that we are seeking to get involved in what is leaving aside the self-determination, there is a conflict between Pakistan and India and China looking on that controls part of Kashmir. 3 nuclear powers in the world. And we want to say that Scotland should have a say in what happens between these sovereign states and with the people of Kashmir. We cannot intervene in every single issue around the world. And it is a legacy of the British government that it is in this mess. And my view is that we should not take a position on it, that this should be for the people of Kashmir, the people of Pakistan, and the people of India to decide. And what we are doing is acting like colonial overlords, coming along and saying, this is our view of what you should do. And we surely in 2019 are beyond that of thinking that we have some God-given right to judge and say what should happen in what were formerly parts of the British Empire. The empire has gone. We shouldn't have a debate on what they should settle between themselves. It is for Pakistan and India to sort this out. And we should encourage them to get together and talk about it.
Thank you very much, Morgan. So we are, as you know, moving on swiftly, delegates, and therefore I would ask those speakers we've heard to waive their right to sum up on this occasion in order that we can move to